Well, hello. Every gal needs a cowboy hat.
Scanning the room, you look for a familiar face. Everyone is a stranger. Your heart's racing, you feel nauseous. New plan. You meet 4 new people. Okay, 3. 2? You can handle 2. And then you think, I hate this. This just feels so fake. And before you talk to even 1 new person, you're looking for the nearest exit.
Okay. Crazy. Yo, who invited this chick?
My heart races when I walk into a room full of strangers too. Except it's not anxiety, it's excitement. I'm not thinking networking quota. I'm thinking, look at all these stories. And I get so pumped about talking to people that I don't know.
Oh, brother, this guy stinks!
Welcome, everyone. Oh, I am so excited for our show today. My name is Gail Robertson, and I am Chief Curiosity Officer with GailNow. And I help manufacturers both tell and share their stories. And part of storytelling is also about how we connect with people, how we network, and how we share valuable knowledge. And today's guests, he is going to share some very valuable tips on how we can connect better through a few simple concepts. Not necessarily easy, though, but we're going to welcome this guest. We're going to get right to it today because I want to make sure we have lots of time to dig right into this guest's great knowledge and tips that he has to share. So let's welcome Bob Burg.
Hi, Gail.
Hello, Bob. We finally meet. I've been, I like to say following/stalking you on social media.
Thank you.
And I am very honored to have you as my guest today. And I know in the manufacturing sector, I know there are a lot of people that can benefit from some of your knowledge. So I just want to first, before we get started, I want to welcome some of our guests in our studio audience today. So we have Inger, who's doing double duty. Inger is in our audience as well as helps with some of the show production. So as she said, stay tuned. You know, when you go live and links and clicks and things, sometimes we start a little bit later, but we're still pretty close to on time. We have D. Scott Smith, who is here from Oregon. And Whitney Koch. Hello. So Whitney, welcome. We have, these are some of some regulars. We have a local person here from Windsor. Elizabeth is here. Hello. Elizabeth definitely follows your ideas around giving. So, and actually, I think quite a few people in our audience today. So I want to dive right in, Bob, to what you talk about in your series, The Go-Giver. So maybe if you could just give, for people who may not be aware of what you do, a little bit of a highlight of the Go-Giver series.
Yeah, it's a series of books, most of them parables, written with John David Mann. He's the co-author and really the lead writer and storyteller. He's a magnificent writer. I'm much more of a how-to guy. I'm step 1, step 2, step 3. And the Go-Giver really is the basic premise is that shifting your focus, this is really where it all begins, shifting your focus from getting to giving. And now when we say giving in this context, we simply mean constantly and consistently providing immense value to others, understanding that doing so is not only a more fulfilling way of conducting business, it's the most financially profitable way as well. And not for any way out there, woo-woo, magical, mystical type of reasons. Not at all. It's actually very rational. When you're that person who can take your focus off of yourself and place it on serving others, really discovering their needs, their wants, their desires, when you can move off of yourself and look at how you can help others solve their challenges and problems, when you can move from a focus on yourself to a focus on helping move others closer to happiness, people feel good about you. People feel great about you. They want to get to know you. They like you. They trust you. They want to be in a relationship with you. They want to do business with you. They want to tell others about you. Really, they want to be your personal walking ambassador.
I love that, and such a great summary, because often when we think about that concept, it seems simple, and yet it seems to be a struggle for people. And in the world I work in manufacturing, I find this is what happens is people in person, they will go to a trade show, even when they're walking in to meet someone at a plant, they're chatting and talking. But then when they move over to online or to social media, all of a sudden they want to go right to selling. Could you comment on that, or any ideas or suggestions on how people could maybe adjust their thinking when it comes to how they show up online?
Well, one of the main points in the series, and what I've been saying for 30 plus years that I've been speaking and writing, is that the golden rule of sales, of business, of networking, is simply that all things being equal, people will do business with and refer business to those people they know, like, and trust. What I don't say is that they do business with and refer business to those computers they know, like, and trust. So I think it's really important to understand that the same basic principles that apply in person, IRL, right, in real life, also apply online. So, while you wouldn't think of just meeting someone and just boom, going right after the sale, well, the same is true online. It's still that relationship that you're developing. And even more so online, where people are just bombarded so often with people who connect with them and then all of a sudden just go for the sale. I think we need to realize it's still all about the value we can provide to another human being, and that's what builds a relationship. That's what begins that know, like, and trust feeling toward you.
And you have done an amazing job yourself of becoming, Hall of Fame speaker. You're a best-selling author. You have a lot of followers, and a lot of people know who you are. And I guess for anybody listening today, I guess I would suggest anyone definitely take a page out of your book, literally, figuratively, and because you are someone who has shown up on my radar because it's not because you were reaching out to me or that you were pummeling me with any type of sales speak. It was really, you were sharing knowledge. And we've had a loss there. So I know we'll come back to getting Bob back on our live stream with, a few glitches. We may want to make sure we're going over, for anyone, if you have any issues with LinkedIn, please go over to YouTube. So a couple of things more when Bob comes back. We want to talk about how he talks about value versus price. So I don't know what happened there. This happens sometimes. You know what? The joys of live are that things like that happen, and it just makes it kind of exciting.
You were saying something very, very nice, and I appreciated that. You were talking about us connecting online and so forth, and I appreciated that. And then somehow all of a sudden, boom, I was no longer there, or you were no longer there. One of us was no longer there.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure it was me.
Yeah, so, it was, what, and you know what, when we're live, I know there's been a few issues on LinkedIn Live, so sometimes we go over to YouTube, but anyways, I was also just saying, talking about a bit of a segue. Yes, we met because of online and you showing up online. So I talk about a 3-step process, which is sign up, suit up, and show up. Now, the sign up part is about mindset. The suit up is about research, getting information, and then showing up. Sometimes that means stepping outside your comfort zone. It's showing up in places that, a lot of people don't necessarily like having to even show up at a trade show, but they do it because it's part of their job. And I say the same thing with LinkedIn or YouTube.
Mm-hmm. Sometimes we got to do those things that aren't necessarily the most fun part of the job, because it's part of what makes the job, successful.
Mhm.
So, we stay congruent with our values and do things in a way, right, that is going to, um, help us to advance the conversation for all parties involved, even though we may not enjoy it. I'm very much an introvert. So for me to have to go anywhere where there's other human beings is never something that I would basically rather do. But
Yeah.
that's one reason why I created my endless referral system, because I knew I needed to be able to do it if I was going to have an opportunity to be successful, right? Because and
Yeah.
this is well before online became so everywhere. But
Right.
but even so, I still think it's the same thing. Don't get me wrong. There are people who have very successful online businesses who never have to leave their computer, but it's difficult for most of us. For most, it is a combination. It's not an either or, it's a both.
Yes, I agree. And as someone, I actually work with people, and I just did some promos for this show because I actually I did a YouTube, I did short, I did a TikTok with some little bit of music behind it, and but that's what makes it exciting because we're all different, and I love that's part of your teaching too, is that to really understand the differences is so key. And you talked about empathy, and I thought this was really an interesting definition because it's not necessarily that you can feel exactly what someone else is going through, but can you give your definition of empathy? Because I think this is so important for salespeople and recruiters.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's important too, because I think people skills, the ability to, and what I call genuine influence, and the title of one of John's and my books is that genuine influence is the ability to get the results you want when dealing with others while helping them to feel genuinely good about
Mhm.
themselves, about the situation, and about you. This is a prime aspect of people skills. And I believe people skills are the difference maker between the reasonably successful person and the stratospherically successful person. It's how they are able to navigate human relationships. I believe empathy is the most important aspect of people skills. Now, the dictionary definition of empathy is the identification with or vicarious experiencing of another person's feelings. So that is saying that it is understanding their feelings, but that's not necessarily so easy to do because we're not them. We're not them. We come from a different set of experiences, a different set of beliefs. We don't necessarily understand how they feel. Fortunately, I don't think that's what communicating empathy is necessarily all about. I think it's really all about understanding that, or communicating, excuse me, that while you may not understand exactly how they feel, you understand they're feeling something, and that this something is distressful to them, and that you are there to help them through that. Now, sometimes you communicate it through what you say, and as well as how you say it, but often it's simply just how you show up. And that's what helps you be empathetic and really communicate that empathy. And even if you don't understand exactly how they're feeling, they still understand you care. They understand that you have their well-being and best interest at heart.
I love that because, I've also done work in the area of mental health and grief. And, it's very hard to understand what someone may have gone through in terms of from a grief perspective. But if you can understand that they have feelings about that, and not necessarily saying I understand, because it can come across as not being very genuine at times, even if that's not your intention.
Sure.
And I love how you connect that to the sales world. And I would even say to recruiting, because in manufacturing right now, a lot of the areas that I work on is helping people with both sales and recruiting, because there really isn't much of a difference when you're promoting your brand or
Exactly.
talking to people, communicating. It all kind of comes down to some basic principles. And
Mhm.
I want to put up something here because this is looking at your five, I guess, lessons. So I'm just going to put this up, and then maybe we can, or the royal we, meaning you, can kind of go through, just highlight some of these, because value for me, I love value. And I think some people in sales definitely have heard, the difference between value and price, but I think can always hear it again. So maybe if you could just highlight these 5 lessons that you have. And then for people listening, I would encourage you to go get the book, read more about what Bob's doing, because these are really key principles that work so well.
Thank you. Yeah. So the law of value says your true worth is determined by how much more you give in value than you take in payment. Now, this can sound counterintuitive when you first hear it because, give more in value than you take in payment. That sounds like a recipe for bankruptcy, right? So we do have to understand the difference between price and value. And as you said, I think most people do know, but let me give you kind of my definitions just in case it's a little bit different. Price is a dollar figure. It's a dollar amount. It's finite. It is what it is. Value, on the other hand, is the relative worth or desirability of a thing, of something, to the end user or beholder. In other words, what is it about this thing, this product, service, concept, idea, job opportunity, what have you, that brings so much worth to another person that they will willingly exchange value with you? Okay. So if it's a customer, they're going to exchange their money for the product or service, the value you give them. If you're recruiting, they're exchanging their time and lost opportunity cost by not taking on something else by being a member of your team or what have you. And so the key is that the value provider, it's upon them to create such a great experience that it's worth much more than the price being asked. Now, compensation, the law of compensation says your income is determined by how many people you serve and how well you serve them. So where law number 1 says to give more in value than you take in payment, law number 2 tells us that the more people whose lives you touch with the exceptional value you provide, the more income you'll receive. So you may recall in the story, Nicole Martin, the CEO, explained to Joe, the protege, that while the law of value represents your potential income, it's not enough to provide great value to just one person. The law of compensation represents your actual income because it's all about how many lives you impact. So we could say exceptional value plus significant reach equals very high compensation.
And I just want to add in here, this is where showing up, especially online, can really help, because instead of one-to-one, you have one-to-many. So just want to add that in for anybody listening.
Great point. And as a content provider, you're able to, and then of course, making sure you engage with those people who, right? So law number 3 is the law of influence. And this says your influence is determined by how abundantly you place other people's interests first. Again, sounds kind of productive, maybe even Pollyanna-ish. Until you realize that the greatest leaders this is simply how they run their lives. The biggest influencers, this is how they run their lives. The top the consistently, sustainably top producing, top money earning salespeople, this is how they run their lives and conduct their businesses. They're always looking for ways to make it about the other person and take care of their interests. Now, let me qualify this, though, if I may, because I think it can be easily misunderstood, and it's very important. When we say place the other person's interests first, we don't mean you should ever be anyone's doormat or a martyr or self-sacrificial. Absolutely not at all. It simply is Joe, the protege, learned from several of the mentors. And as we've discussed, about the golden rule, all things being equal, people will do business with and refer business to those people they know, like, and trust. Well, here's what we all know. You know this, we all know this. And that is that there's no faster, more powerful, or more effective way to elicit those feelings toward you than by genuinely moving from an I focus or me focus to an other focus, looking for ways to, as Sam, one of the mentors, explained to Joe, make your win all about the other person's win. Law number 4, excuse me, go ahead.
I was just going to say, no, I agree with that. And I remember I worked for an employer, and one of the things they said too was that this was instilled in all of us: a win-win-win, a win for the company, a win for whoever you were, your customer or client, and then a win for the end user, the audience, the person. And when all 3 groups are winning, that's when you have success. So
Exactly. Great point. Law number 4 is the law of authenticity. And this one says the key to effective giving is to, no, excuse me. Let me go back one. This one says the most valuable gift you have to offer is yourself. And this was the part where Deborah Davenport, the very successful realtor, shared a very important lesson she learned. And that is that all the skills in the world, sales skills, technical skills, people skills, as important as they are, and they are all very, very important, they're also all for naught if you don't come at it from your true, authentic core. But when you do, when you show up as yourself day after day, week after week, month after month, people feel good about you. They feel comfortable with you. They feel safe with you. And why wouldn't they? They know who they're getting. And as human beings, we have a need to understand our world, right? In a world that's very unpredictable, right? That sort of predictability of that authenticity, that consistency, very, very powerful when it comes to trust. Now, one thing I'd like to just mention about authenticity is I think that, like so many terms that are used today, it's sort of, I think, become almost misdefined or misunderstood, if you will. Authenticity now seems to have taken on this definition of, it means you have no boundaries. It means you say or do whatever you want because that's just how it is. I'm authentic and I say what, I think that's so incorrect. This would be sort of like the person who says, well, I have anger issues and I yell at people a lot. And if I were to act any differently, that wouldn't be authentic of me. And I think that's baloney. It simply means that person has an authentic problem that they need to authentically work on in order to become a better, higher, more effective, authentic version of themselves. So, my suggestion is to not let authenticity stand in the way of growth, but instead use authenticity as an impetus to continue to learn and become your highest version of yourself. I have a very simple definition of authenticity, and it's simply acting congruently with your values. That's it.
I'm glad you explained that, because I do think that's exactly what's happening with authenticity, where people will say, well, that's just the way I am. Meanwhile, there's, and I'm going to say, spewing things that are like mean, angry, and yeah. And that's a whole other topic for another day on it, because I do think there's, and I've heard you talk about some of this too, especially on Twitter. I know, because some people put out things and then someone will just, I always find it interesting when someone will say something like, we need to be kinder, and then they go post something, respond to someone that's like so mean. I'm like, that doesn't make sense.
Yeah. It's like, kinder means if you agree with me.
Yeah. And I always say you can disagree without being disagreeable. I heard that once, and that stuck with me. It's really important that we don't. Yeah. So anyways, I thank you for explaining that. And then the fifth.
The fifth one is the law of receptivity. And this one says the key to effective giving is to stay open to receiving. And this one really just simply is about understanding that, you breathe out. Well, you also have to breathe in. It's not one or the other. It's both. You breathe out carbon dioxide. You breathe in oxygen. You breathe out, which is giving. You breathe in, which is receiving. Giving and receiving are really, well, let me say this. They're not opposite concepts, even though the world around us, with its constant anti-prosperity messages, seems to try to tell us that it is. I mean, if you read the news or listen to the news or watch the discussions or what have you, you would think that anybody who earns a lot of money somehow did it on the backs of others or through nefarious means or through some kind of, hey, it's a big world. There's people who do things in ways we certainly don't like, but no, for those of us, including everyone who's listening or watching to this, who operates their business and nobody has to buy from us. They only do so because they believe it will be in their best interest to do so. The only way we can earn a lot of money is to provide a lot of value to a lot of people. And so it's important, I think, to know that giving and receiving are not opposite concepts. They're simply two sides of the very same coin, and they work in tandem. It's not, are you a giver or a receiver? No, you're a giver and a receiver. Now, let's take this a step further, though. What we do know is that the giving comes first. This is universal law. It's laws of nature, human nature, and physical nature. We have to plant before we harvest, right? We sow before we reap. We give value before we receive. The key is that when doing so, and understanding that when you're giving correctly to a lot of people, placing their interests first and coming from your true authentic core, you have created the benevolent context for your success. And when the prosperity comes to you, you've got to be able to willingly and lovingly and with gratitude receive it.
Thank you. I love those analogies too about the giving and receiving. And it is something that is so valuable when we are looking at showing up for others. And I often say too that in the world I'm in manufacturing, so many people have great information and ideas to share. So I often say they have a duty to share this information with others, and using social as a means to get there, so that they can share this knowledge, because it will help with receiving back. But it's that whole giving first. And I have found over many years of the work I've done that, when you're giving information, helping people, it always comes back. It's that circle, right? Of reciprocity. Yes. So, and I know we're coming up to our time with you today. And I know this show, we could go on. There's so much more to talk to you about. So maybe another time I'll have you back on another topic, because I do like that idea that you talked about too of, there's this, it's almost that people that have done well or have been successful, that sometimes people want to say, oh, well, they're bad. And I'm like, I've worked again for a company. They started out with nothing. They worked up, they remortgaged, they did all these things. And now, they went on to be phenomenally successful, had nice cars. And I said, more power to them. Like, they worked very hard to get to that. And I think we need to celebrate more of that rather than the pointing of fingers, because it's we encourage success, but interestingly, these same people they give so much back too. Like, I've seen firsthand that the reason they have been so successful is I know how much they've contributed to the community. Not only through, building up companies, but also supporting community events. So maybe have that could be a whole show. Bob, maybe how do you feed your curiosity? Because as I said, I am Chief Curiosity Officer, and I work with people to try to get them to be more curious, to ask more questions. And I know there are things that I do, to what I call feed my curious brain. How do you feed your curious brain? Because I know you're a very curious person.
I am. And I ask a lot of questions of people in order to try to understand. I'm continually seeking answers and understanding regarding human nature and how and why people do what they do and act as they act. Anything that I don't understand that I feel is important, I read and I watch. And again, I ask questions and I listen and I ask more questions. So yeah, I'm a very curious person, and I'm always looking to satisfy that curiosity.
Okay, that's great. And is there anything going back to your early days that you struggled with? Anything, tips that you could give to others that may be saying they're uncomfortable with being curious?
No, I think you just, I think we all have our own ways of pursuing happiness. And I think those who are curious tend to probably be happier because they realize there's a whole world, there's a whole banquet out there of things we don't know that we want to know. And it's fun. And, so I would just, I would say, get curious about more things and stay curious and ask a lot of questions and be ready to listen and see that, there's one thing I had to learn from when I was a lot younger was that most of the things I was absolutely positively certain that I knew, I absolutely didn't know. I only thought I did. And it was only once I got to that point that I got real curious because I had that finally knew what I didn't know.
Well, that is an amazing way to wrap up our time with you today. And I know you go on a lot of podcasts. You definitely show up. I am so impressed with, and there's, many other topics. And I encourage people to go listen to some of those other podcasts with you, because I know you've talked about that whole idea of, being right versus, that old saying, do you want to be right or do you want to be happy? And I love what you said today about curious people are likely happier. I think that is so true, because when you're curious, you always know there's more to learn. And when you are upset or unhappy or feeling, you can go search for answers and find help. So thank you very much for adding that pearl of wisdom here for us today.
My absolute pleasure. Thank you so much for having me.
Bob, thank you. I'm going to stay on because I'm going to, normally I bring up some comments from our studio audience. I don't think there's any questions particularly for you, but if you did get a chance, you'll be able to, I'm going to let you move on to your next event. And I am going to have a little chat with the guests here and just we'll probably continue on to sing your praises.
Thank you, Gail. And thank you, everybody. I appreciate you taking the time to tune in. Make it a
Thanks,
great
Bob.
day. Bye-bye.
Ciao. Oh, wow. Bob Burg is someone that I have been following and watching, and he is definitely a renowned speaker, author. And we didn't get into talking so much about his books, but he uses parables, and he does have a co-author. And one of the things important, especially for people out there that may be more, tips oriented, process oriented. I see you, David Chrysler, and more step by step. That is Bob's specialty. So he's working with a co-author that takes his tips and ideas and transforms them into parables. So that's another thing. If you need help with something, sometimes reach out and find someone with a different expertise that can help guide you. So let's go through some of the comments here today. And I do want to do a special shout out to Inger, who is helping in the background with production as well as messages live today. And I see some people are on LinkedIn as well as YouTube. Thank you for stopping into the YouTube. And Inger is working with her daughter today. Her daughter is in background here helping because it's take your child/kid to work day today. So thank you, Inger, for that. Thank you, Kayla. It's great to have you both on board. Okay, let's go through some of the comments, and I want to thank everybody for joining in. I didn't bring up a lot of comments today just because I had only a certain amount of time with Bob today, and I wanted to just get a lot of his information in. Okay, back up to comments. Do we have comments? Okay, I'm gonna, I guess, jump in here. There we go. There we go. Greg, hello, Greg. Greg Droulard is in the house. Greg is here based in Windsor, Essex County. So thank you, Greg. Also met through connecting, networking, and used to see him at the gym when I was at the other gym. Now I'm at a new gym. Thank you, Inger. Yeah, building that KLT factor, know, like, trust. Simple, not always easy. Katie, you're never late. You're always just on time. As long as you're joining us. We haven't had a FaceTime call for a while, so we need to catch up. Thanks, Katie. Okay, D. Scott, do what you have to do so you can do the things you want to do. Yes. And one of the things, it's interesting, a lot of introverts don't like doing video, don't like doing being out there and showing up. So often that's where I help as well with clients, is because I like doing video and I don't mind doing even some fun TikToks. And I've just started doing some YouTube shorts as well. So yes, we need to all celebrate our strengths. And then the king of process is in the house, David Chrysler from the Chrysler Club. Hello, David. Hello. Be ready to listen. You don't know what you don't know. And I often say, how do you know what you know? If you don't know what you know, you just know. I don't know why I said that. That used to be something I think I said it to my son, those sayings that you have with your kids. So, okay, before we go, enlightening conversation. Thank you, D. Scott. I would agree with that. One other thing I used to say to my son is that, what was it he said? If he said, oh, I thought something, I used to say, you know what thought did? Stuck a feather in the ground and thought it would grow into a chicken. That's the mom joke of the day. Okay, let's see. Great advice. Oh, is that great advice? I think you're talking about what Bob Burg said. Yes, he had some great advice, great lessons. Thank you, Elizabeth. Great tips. Yes, Bob Burg has some definite, and a lot of it's information that we kind of know, from growing up, we often hear those things, better to give than receive. A lot of those are also very, sometimes faith-based, better to give than receive, and to help your neighbors. And a lot of those basic principles are set up for a reason because they work. When we are helping others, often that will come back to us. And it's not always right in the moment. It's not like, oh, I'm going to do this and I get this back. And it's not always that like everything has to be this 50-50, because sometimes in any relationship, those numbers could be out of balance depending on where things stand. And sometimes you're going to give more and sometimes you will get more depending on situation. So, yes. Okay. Do we have any other new comments coming in? We have, okay. Thank you. Definitely an enlightening conversation. Yes. And there's so much more. I encourage people to go look up the Go Giver principle and the parables. Definitely some great information. Okay. I want to thank everybody for coming out. We have the website, and Bob is on a lot of podcasts, and I am, as I said, I felt very privileged that he accepted and agreed to be on Show Up with GailNow Live. I'm hoping to continue to bring in people that aren't only from manufacturing world, but that can lend support and help to those of us working in manufacturing. Often I find, as I said it during the call with Bob, is that people get stuck in that fear place or discomfort place when it comes to showing up online, to showing up in podcasts, to showing up even on social media on a place like LinkedIn. And instead, as Bob said, as well as others say, it's that, it's 2022, soon to be 2023. And if you're not showing up online, you are going to be left behind. And now there's even more things coming up on the horizon. And this is an area I'm starting to explore, is the world of the metaverse and working with people like Mitch Jackson, because, as they say, the times they are changing. And back in 2007-ish was when I got on Twitter. And I will tell you, it has been life-changing. I was just talking to someone about this the other day. Because of Twitter, it has opened so many doors, made contacts locally through to globally. I've met the most amazing people, all because I decided to get on that train back in 2007 and decided to sign up, suit up, and show up. So there is much opportunity. If you are looking to get some help or support with how to show up and need some help with public relations, how to do a news release, how to even prepare to be on a podcast, how to prepare to do a video, what are some things that you need to do? You can reach out to me here on LinkedIn, also through multiple channels. You can, I'm on most channels, now even on Discord, you can find me as GailNow. So hopefully, if you have any questions, you'll reach out. And I want to thank everybody for coming today. And if there's any other questions, or if anyone has any thoughts about the show and any other topics you'd like to see covered, please let me know. I'm trying to have that mix of people in manufacturing as well as outside manufacturing. And next week I have, let's see, next week is, let me think. Oh, I think I have the Spindle Chick. Got to tune in to see that guest. And I also have some other people in manufacturing lined up over the next couple of weeks. And then we'll be also looking at others that are showing up in person and online. And yeah, thanks everyone again for today, for showing up, supporting this show and supporting a guest like Bob Burg. And if you can even head over to his page and drop a comment, connect with him on LinkedIn, that would be great as well. Okay, I am going to sign off now and encourage everyone to have an amazing day and look at ways that you can maybe show up and do something outside your comfort zone and help celebrate the wonderful world of manufacturing. Take care, everyone, and see you next week.